bring us up to date, mate. Did you drive Tommy down to the MRI scan this morning?
That was Jakey's job this morning.
Okay.
Look, so I don't know how Tommy is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We had recovery and reviews. So we had a day off today. We've got recovery review tomorrow. But after the game, he was disappointed. I think it's his groin, but he was moving around all right. How bad? I'm not too sure. And he's not too sure either. He hasn't done one yet, so...
You have to do the cough when you do the groin.
Oh, do you?
If you cough, then you'll know the severity, grade 1, grade 2. If
There was no coughing in the shed, so
okay.
Don't know how bad. Look, if it was a hemi, he gets a feel. He knows how bad he's done it. So, hope for us as Manly, I hope it's nothing too bad. It's not good when you see Tommy come off, and he's copped a bit of flack as of late. Everyone thinks he's injured. So. If he is out for a little bit of a period, it might give him a time to just get his body 100% right, and just if he's got any doubt with his body, just get it fully fit. But we just got to wait for the results on the scans.
Well, is it the same groin as he's had the hamstring trouble with?
I can't tell you. I'm not sure.
You can't tell.
I don't know. No idea.
Yeah.
You'd know more
what
about
do
it.
we pay you for, mate?
Mate, I've only been there for a month, and he hasn't had an injury problem, so I haven't worried about asking him.
It's interesting you say he's been under some scrutiny because I spoke to Scott Penn this morning, the chairman, the owner, and he said, look, people need to just back off this guy. Give him some space. He's changed his running style. He's undergoing a whole new sort of training program that he learned off Billy Knowles in America. And I know Siebes a couple of weeks ago said, look, lay off the guy, give him some time and space. And Scott Penn repeated that. He said, look, he may not be going full tilt at the moment. I think we can all see he's not going full tilt. But
what do they mean by lay off him, though?
Just stop microanalyzing every moment with him. That's what we do. I know.
Okay,
that's what we do, Jimmy.
Walk away from the millions of dollars that the media put into the game. Then
I think he's such a superstar. So your eyes are on him no matter what.
You can't avoid it when you earn that sort of money and you're that big a star.
He's a superstar.
You will be under scrutiny constantly.
He's won a Dally M.
Yep.
Like he's dominated the Origin scene.
He had that season where he dominated.
People are going to expect that each and every week. Even a quietish performance is going to get people talking.
Yep.
Every single week when you see the Manly team sheet, you look out who's number one.
Yeah.
When Manly play, when he's not playing, the record will come up. You can't escape it. I get like Manly are trying to protect him, leave him alone, but it's not going to happen.
I think it's the constant suggestions that he's not fit.
Always when he's in the open space. Really, his first 10 meters is good, but when he doesn't, it's like he doesn't want to get to full stride.
Yes.
When he's doing little runs in and around a ruck, that's okay.
What's he like at training though?
So that's what I was going to talk to you about. Yeah. So what he does, mate, he gets in there probably about an hour before everyone else. He's just got this little bit of a program that he does, and he does it every day. He's got a funny, it's a funny warm up when you watch him come on the field. You watch pre-game, watch what he does.
Yeah.
He's in the sheds. You get this little period like about an hour before the coach addresses you. He's doing all these techniques with one of the physios that went over with him to Bill Knowles.
Andrew Lowndes.
Yeah. So he's doing it with him. He's got him on all these stretch bands and
activation.
All this activation stuff. It's about, I don't know, you'd know a little bit about it. It's instead of running, I think it's about all the force he puts
it's
through.
Ankle position.
Yeah,
it's knee position.
How hard
it's shin position. It's all this sprint technique stuff.
And it's all about warming it up and getting it ready to go.
Efficient running.
Yeah,
it's not trying to break the land speed record. Yeah. It's efficient running to look after you. Because he's lower back, I would say, given his hip injury that he's had, niggle that he's had, his hamstring issues, the groin one as well, something is out of alignment there.
But it's also, a lot of them have told him you got to hit the ground softly and all that, where I think Knowles told him he's got to hit the ground hard.
Yeah, he told that when we spoke to him about it in the just before he came back, he was talking about having squishy ankles. Squishy ankles. He said you can't have squishy ankles. You've got to make firm contact with the ground.
Yeah, that's it. And everyone said you got to be real soft, but he's gone to Knowlesy and said, no, it's got to be rock hard. Yeah.
Got to be rock hard.
Yeah.
Squishy ankles.
Yeah.
But, mate, as I said, his pre-ab, mate, it's one of the best I've seen. It's absolutely phenomenal. He's in there earlier than everyone else. But after training, he does his own thing.
Is that a bit of a disadvantage, though? Like, you've got to be so primed to go out and perform.
Well, he's a different body type.
Not at all. I think it's a good thing for the other guys. It shows them what it takes to be a professional athlete.
There's a lot to think about, though, isn't there?
I think that could be another factor.
And, you can be thinking, did I miss that bit? And how much is... Because the price of entry for the NRL is high in terms of what you've got to be able to do. Yep. But then when you're going above and beyond, this is one of those things that can actually put you off. Like, you've got to really love doing that. You got to really look, and it is boring doing it on your own. Like those are the little things that people don't miss and people don't see and don't understand. And Woodsy, what not like Tommy Trbojevic or Manly don't need to be concerned about what I think, but with this strict regime to get even onto the training paddock, can we say it's working?
I reckon it has.
He hasn't hurt his hammy this time.
Yeah,
it's on his groin.
He's been one of our main players.
Well, Melbourne, the game against Melbourne, I was there, I witnessed at ground level, cheering Woodsy on his first ever. Should have scored a try that night. Got ripped off.
Appreciate it, mate.
But you could see when he and they were kicking to him, they were testing him, Melbourne, he was barreling into the line at full pelt. He wasn't doing that the week before against Penrith, and he wasn't doing that against West Tigers.
The
week to week,
the weeks previously, Adam, he had a little bit of a hip point injury as well.
Yeah. We didn't against Melbourne.
Yeah, the week previously.
The Penrith game.
You know what it's like a hit pointer. They're hard to get going as well. So I think you need an injection for that too. So
I think then probably to counteract my point, he's got to persevere with it.
Yep.
And despite the fact you pick up a groin injury,
he'll be right.
That's what you got to say to him. But it's a difficult situation to manage because I know what it's like when you go through so much effort and like those all that time spent, and then you're not seeing results. As an individual, it can frustrate you, and you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to get out there and rip in. Why can't I do what I used to be able to do?
Yeah.
Why can't I just turn up like a 21-year-old and show everyone what I'm made of? I've got to go through all this process, and yet I'm still getting hampered with injuries. So it's a real. I know Manly are saying leave him alone, but leave him alone. They need to give him more attention and make sure that he's psychologically in a good space to be able to say, I'm going to go back and reapply myself. I've gone back a couple of steps now with this groin injury, but I've got to keep going with it.
The funny thing is, we never really talk about it Manly too. Like, it's the only people that give it a bit of the air is the media and outside in. Like, it's just normal. You see Tommy in there, he's doing his thing. We don't focus anything on it. He's been in every training session I've done, and he doesn't do anything to stop our training, or he's always in all our drills. He'll get it done before we do it. So there's no real like moment we go, we've got to wait for Tommy. He's got his thing to do.
I'll tell you one thing I could not give two about, and I don't know if other fans of other clubs are like this when one of their star players goes down at this time of year. Origin. Yeah. I could not give a flying stuff if he misses Origin. It's probably better for Manly that he does miss. New South Wales would be fine. They'll just put Campbell Graham in there probably.
Well, it was interesting. Greg Alexander spoke about it this morning on radio, and he basically said, look, we've got something to think about now because Tommy's a formality, right? If Tommy's fit, he plays. But he acknowledged that there was... Well, the way I interpreted it, he acknowledged that there's doubt over Tommy. And maybe they don't pick Tommy now. Yeah. Maybe he's not in the team. But you're right. I mean, it's Campbell Graham.
Plenty of options.
Tony Staggs. Yeah, they do have alternatives, but they're not Tommy.
Yeah.
Or Tommy when he's at his best.
Yeah,
but the way Brandy was talking, I would think that Tommy...
Put a line through him.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't put a line through him, but he's probably drifting.
See, I normally would want him to play for New South Wales, not worry about Manly. But now that
shoes
on the other foot,
now you know how I feel. Now you know the fans feel.
I go for New South Wales and I love Manly. So,
but I'm sure South fans were the same last year, James. About when Latrell said, "I'm not playing Origin," and for New South Wales it was, "Oh no." But for South fans, it's like, "Yes."
Won't matter anyway, boys. Won't matter anyway.
Oh, shut up.
It is an interesting predicament as well because am I right in thinking that if you're not available for Origin,
can
you play for can you
can't lob that weekend and play for your club?
Well, I think you can. I think it's a discretionary thing. I don't think it's a.
Is it?
Put a line through.
If you're saying
if you're selected,
if you're saying to the selectors, look, I'm not fit to play on a Wednesday, can he then play on that weekend for Manly?
I would have thought he could. If he says, look, I don't think I'm fit enough to play Origin, but I can play a club game, then I would have thought you'd be fine.
I think it's fair. I just know that's been around the conversation before.
If they picked him and he said, no, I'm pulling out, that'd be a different story. But I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll...
Really? With all the ties to the clubs?
Not if Tommy made it clear that he didn't think he was right for Origin.
Well, it's a step up. Is it not?
It's a lot more intense.
Intensity?
A lot more intense.
Oh no, I'm not saying that, but
I don't think it's a strict
It'd be interesting
rule,
to see if Freddie Fittler he goes, I'd rather have a 90% or an 80% Tommy Turbo.
I think that decision
on
comes
the
down,
field.
That comes down to both of them. That decision, but like you said with Latrell, he backed himself and said, "Look, I'm not going to play." He ruled himself out. He knows that he's got to get his body. You got to get your head right too. Origin's a different arena. If you're going in that not half-hearted, but if you've got a lot of doubts, it's a tough arena. If you make one mistake, you're going to get scrutinised like no tomorrow.
But you know what? This is going to feed into the narrative that a Queenslander would never do this.
Yeah. Who gives a rat's ass about Queenslanders?
Well, you can say that, Woodsy. You can say that, but the narrative has affected what's happened on the field before with the worst ever Queensland team. That's affected it before. It's been in the head. Does Origin mean as much to New South Wales people as it does to Queenslanders?
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a lot of things that New South Wales people don't do that Queenslanders do, like vote Clive Palmer into Parliament, for instance. That's one thing. We haven't.
Well, you know all that's going to happen is you're going to have players coming out going, I'm 80% and I'd still play. In fact, I've been 80% before. And that's something that we're all going to lap up and talk about. But I think the game is much better when Tommy Trbojevic is fully fit and firing on all cylinders. I want him to play Origin. I want him to play Manly. He's great to watch. He can do things that no other player can. But he needs to get himself right, and he's in a position where he knows every move will be scrutinised, whether he plays or whether he doesn't.
That's it.
He's basically just got to put the walls up and say, keep that noise out there. I'm just going to focus on me.
Speaking of walls, Woodsy, how was the fight in the tunnel yesterday after the game?
Mate, I didn't see it. There was a bit of...
Oh, come on.
Honestly, mate,
you've just poked my eye out.
Have you been to Campbelltown Stadium? Have you been down there?
It's the smallest tunnel in the world. How did you not see it?
Mate, I was inside. I was with my little fella, Buster.
Tell us what you hear. Tell us what you heard.
We were just getting around the wind, mate, because I couldn't believe how good it is.
Tell us what you heard, then.
Tell us what you heard. I just heard a little bit of screaming and yelling. And
I actually heard some screaming and yelling?
I thought that was just the fans because I was copping it all game. So it didn't really bother me too much.
You were copping it a bit too. They were booing you,
every time I touched the ball.
Well, okay then, Woodsy.
Cheered you when you dropped it.
You didn't see it. Right, you know what? If an incident happened outside the studio and I didn't see it but I heard it, you know what I'd do when I went out? Hey, what happened there?
No,
so when you ask that question,
I'll tell you,
what happened there?
Look,
can you spill the beans to us, please?
You can keep trying to get stuff out of me. So my brother-in-law works...
we will. Because we know you know.
My brother-in-law works for the Tigers, and I went out because he's...
No, we didn't ask. We're not on the mate.
Hey. I'm talking. Just wait. So my son... That's his uncle. So I went out to say, I said, Billy, what's going on? And they said, it's nothing, mate. They said, one of the boys just went in there and it's come back out. And I said, really? I said, everyone's saying there was a fight. And he goes, no, honestly, it was honestly nothing. And that was from my brother-in-law.
Oh, well, it must be true.
We had a little weasel out the side that if you see where Campbelltown, there's a little hallway. Michael Chemis was just sitting around the corner. So he was just trying to get a column article for himself.
Okay. All right. So what I'm interested to know is your brother-in-law said there was nothing, but you even just said all the lads are saying there's a fight. What are the lads saying about the fight?
They were more talking about the fight on the field.
Come on,
yes, they're talking about the fight on the field.
So you couldn't pick it up on screen, but it looked like when Fainu and also Schuster missed the tackle for the Tigers to go in front late in that second half, one of the Tigers has run over and just given it to Fainu, and then when Saab scored, Fainu's gone via the Cape to go via the Tigers to give them a bit back while celebrating.
Yeah, so what happened? I think they've had a little bit of history in the lower grades. I think they're from a similar area as well.
Brendan Wakeham and
Wakeham and Fainu brothers.
The Fainu family. Yep.
Yeah, so when they scored that one in the corner, I think it was they went up at that stage.
Yep.
And mate, all the Tigers fans were pumped. The Tigers players were pumped, and the try was scored probably 10 metres straight, and you see Wakeham just beeline straight for Fainu because he was the one involved in the tackle that the player from the Tigers scored from. So he tooted his horn too early. We got the match-winning try on the other side, and he just got his little bit of revenge. And for me, whatever happens on the field stays on the field. I don't think Fainu, from what I've read and what Mick Chemis has wrote, he wasn't even involved in the incident after the game.
It was LA, wasn't it?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I honestly...
But Josh is a bit of a guardian for those...
So Josh is one of one of the players they look up to.
Gosh,
It's funny too because I had Josh at Tigers as a kid, the rat bag. So it's really good to see how he's changed around. He's a really good leader now. It's really good to see how he's changed. But Honestly, I swear on my kids, I honestly didn't see nothing in the sheds after the game.
I know you didn't see anything in the sheds. I know.
It was all in the,
we're
it was
going
all in
to
the field.
scrutinise every. I know you didn't. You didn't. We know you didn't see anything, but we want to
I
know
was on
what
cloud nine.
happened.
We're
It's a
gonna win
good
against the
smother, Woodsy. A
Tigers.
very good smother.
Yeah.
One thing I do know, though, is that the Tigers review, again, when they look back at a little segment of the game, it's going to be so hard to watch because that last set of 6, when they had to roll the dice, and I think it was the third tackle, and literally the dummy halfers looked up and had to pass the ball backwards 5 metres to find a teammate to even carry the ball. There was no one just charging. You know, your first 3 tackles when you're coming out of your own area, you want to make as many yards as possible. There was just total disorganisation for the Tigers when the game was on the line.
Yeah, it's a funny one because you look at all the stats. It's similar to when they played against Parramatta, I think 2 weeks ago on Easter Monday. They won every single stat of the game. They just didn't win the scoreboard. You know, they create a lot of field position. They had a lot of possession. You know, when they got that match-winning try, that was probably the first moment they went at our centre, which was Fainu, and he's a young kid on debut.
He's a back rower, isn't he?
He's never played centre.
Yeah.
So because we've lost a few injuries, we had to put Fainu at one centre position, and the other centre was Olakau'atu. So we had 2 back rowers defending in the centres, and you just would have thought they might have, you know, played a bit more shape at our centres, at our edges, because they're, you know, the young kids on debut, he's never defended out that wide, but for some reason they just kept coming to the middle, and you know, the shape. Not that it's easy to read from us, like looking outside in. At times they're hard to read because I don't think they know what they're doing. If that makes sense, like it looks like they're setting up, but then they get a little bit lost. And lucky that they've got Coruscant with a bit of brilliance. He can come up with something that other players can't.
Yep.
Whereas, you know, when we at Manly, we got, you know, we want to get to a certain position, and then we have a crack, or we get back to our spot, and then we have another crack, and that's where we've got Cherry leading us around. You know, Tommy out the back saying, "Get me here," because we've got this going. For them and being on the field, you can hear that sometimes, but I couldn't really hear it with them. You know, they're a hard side to get a judge on when you're defending against them, because just from outside in, it looks like they don't even know what they're setting up for.
It shows how desperately they need a halfback. It shows you why they threw so much money at Mitchell Moses, why they're now been linked with Lewis Dodd in England, while they were linked with George Williams.
Is that the kid at St Helens?
Yeah.
And
Did
I read somewhere
and that is
that
their priority. They desperately need a halfback.
they said that someone advised him, don't go to a club like
Mike
that,
Rush,
James?
yeah.
Now, what would you, if you're West Tigers sitting there going, okay, we need a halfback,
But then why
we
didn't
need
they
an
go
organiser?
Hastings?
Well,
Because that
obviously
was a personality.
I don't know,
thing,
but
I think, yeah.
would you, knowing that kid, James? I don't know how well you know him, but you know that part of the world pretty well. Would you throw the book at him?
I played with him over in England. Terrific young
He's a freak.
halfback.
Yeah.
Took over at that team. Very experienced. He's playing in a top team. So if he was to come to the NRL, my advice would be to try and join one of the better teams, because he's still young, he's still learning his trade, and even the young halfbacks over here that are in top teams, look at what happened recently to Sammy Walker, to Ilias last year. So I think it would be you're already going to be very much, well, when we talk about the scrutiny of Tom Trbojevic, a guy like Lewis Dodd coming over, the spotlight's going to be on him big time. Is he going to be the next big hope of the Tigers? Is he going to just...
And he'll be on big money too.
Repeat, copy and paste the headlines that Brooks has been under for the last 10, 12, 15 years.
Is this kid good enough, in your opinion?
He is good enough to come over here. Whether or not the challenge of the Tigers, that's a question to see if it happens. I just think with the Tigers, and going off Woodsy's point there about, you know, the situational awareness, that's probably not even, and to recognise when opposition defensive structures change, or when the personnel change, that's like that's the cream on top. That's what, you know, you can only really fine tune once everything else is sorted out. So you see, South Sydney did it in the Good Friday game against the Bulldogs. Bulldogs lose Adokar. Alamotti moves to the wing. Now, for the first sort of 10, 15 minutes of that change happening, Souths went nowhere near the Bulldogs' left edge. And then someone somewhere's got the message out, because obviously Souths favour their left edge.
Yep.
Someone out there has gone, hang on a minute, we've got this Alamotti kid defending on a wing. He's never played there before. There's been a big reshuffle in defensive structure and positions. Let's go to the right. And then it was just before half-time where Souths went bang, bang, 3 tries or so down the right-hand side. So this is an acquired skill, and it doesn't necessarily, the penny doesn't drop straight away. But South Sydney, when they're training, they got all their pet plays, they've got all their mood, their set structure, that's all sorted out. Then they've got work-ons, but that's something that they can do. They can do situational practice where you go, okay, well, this player's down. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Or the coach might do it without even telling them to see if the players can recognise. But the Tigers aren't in a position to practice for that event. And that's why sometimes you might look at it and go, why didn't they know? It's because they've got like 100 other focus areas of the game. That's something that like the elite of the elite can practice on.
Yeah. Anyone else that did South, they did on Thursday night when Crichton... I can't remember who went off the winger for Penrith. Crichton switched sides and went to the wing, and Jamin Salmon was defending in the centres. And they blitzed him in the last 10 minutes.
And that's where that match-winning try came from.
Well, they made a break before that as well. So, clever footballers, right? Smart footballers who are confident.
But also footballers that have actually got the time to put the effort into working on that. That's in the heat of the battle. You know that's an incredibly difficult task to pull off. You've got all this information coming into you, and then a game plan, how you think the game's going to go, and then it's like, hang on, we're going to shift from left to right. And it's also, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of your game plan and go, we're just going to focus all our attention on this particular individual that's now out of sync?
But the other thing is, other sides I've been on, if we don't recognise on the field, it comes from up above.
Yeah, that's true.
So where's the message, coming from?
Well, you listen to
Benji, Tim, Benji.
Well, who's coaching?
Well, they've both got headsets on.
Everyone's
the
coaching.
Coach's box, haven't they?
Speaking of smart plays, I don't think we're even going to run the stinger this week of the WTF moment. What do you reckon? We'll just get straight to...
There's only one.
There's only one. And James Graham, take it away.
It's up a high kick. This is a contest. The Hammer's got it. The Hammer gets a pass. They're going to score. Now, player stumbles.
Why didn't he score?
Jennings has stumbled.
Why didn't he score?
Jennings has stumbled and he's fallen a metre short.
Why didn't he score?
There was no one there. He could have got up and just played it over.
He scored that try.
He tripped over. He just got to get up and put it down.
Why did he not score that try? Just get up. Just get up and go. Just get up and go.
Ray Snow.
Oh, my God. Why didn't he score that try? Wingers have drove me insane this week. We had Ronaldo last night. Now we've got Jennings. Why do we kick them out of our game, Gordon Tallis?
That's our clubhouse leader for the WTF moment of the year.
Why didn't he score?
Why didn't he score? Why didn't he score?
That will be one of the age-old questions.
Yeah.
It's a fair question.
It's like listening to my flatmates and schoolies about 20 years ago when I'm coming back from a nightclub from a night from the nightclub. It's taking me back there, James Graham. Look, listening to Wayne Bennett and Jesse Bromwich after the game, they said that Jennings, the only reasoning that they muttered out after what was, and we'll get to the comeback win in a moment, the only reasoning they gave is he thought for a moment in time that he was held and he couldn't get up. Otherwise, he would have been pinged for a double movement.
But you know when someone's on your age, you got to feel for when.
Was he concussed? Was there anything in 5 minutes before that suggested he could have copped a knock to the head?
You can suggest that. I'm gonna call New South Wales, Queensland Police, see if there's been any suspicious betting patterns placed on that game, because
it's a fair point.
Well, he did score.
Yeah, he did score.
But not that one.
Yeah. Well, hey, he bombed the next one as well.
Yes, he did too.
The poor guy.
There's some gangster in the crowd that's giving him the look, just going like, nah, and he just goes,
he scored the hardest one.
Yeah. One thing it will do is take the pressure off him when it comes to review, because they'll put it up and have a laugh about it now, surely, as opposed to getting beaten by 2 points.
Well, like I said in the call, I thought Ronaldo Mulatalo had took the chocolate.
That was mysterious in itself.
That was, I think, hey, look, Ronaldo's that's the second time this year. Bit of a pet hate. He's got the ball in the wrong hand as well. For a left winger, he should be carrying the ball in the left hand. Me as a front rower, I know that. And I've not been in that situation that many times.
Spearing yourself at the
corner
corner
flag.
Jimmy,
there was no one on him in that. That's like the one that he got.
I know.
The guy knocked the ball out. The other one. That one is just, mate, put it down.
I know. I'm having flashbacks to Mitch Brown, Manly, circa 2014. God, it's a stressful game when you're playing.
What do you reckon Mitch Brown thinks every time he turns on the radio and hears your voice?
Actually, we reenacted that at the pub not long ago, and we concluded that I was right. And Mitch Brown, all he needed to do was come off his left foot, but that's another story for another day. Because if he does that, everything's calm, everything's cool. But in all, look. It's the standard of our game this year has been through the roof, and a couple of those boo-boos by a couple of players. I mean, I was going to say we could forgive them for that, but
we can't.
Look,
they're outliers.
That's why they're wingers, but
you'd want some serious grovelling. You'd want some. I'd be expecting if you're one of the Dolphins players today, you walk into training and there's like a full spread of like sandwiches, cakes, treats, coffees, the lot, like gift vouchers.
Yeah.
Well,
same at the Sharks. Like,
do you know what Ronaldo said? He goes, but next, I just wanted to have a good carry for the boys and show them they'll let them down. What about the 7 tackles that they had to make because you gave up the try?
Is there a fine for that sort of thing? You have a fine
I'd
system
make
for that?
one. We got like a roll of a dice at Manly, so they get a roll for sure. Yeah.
What's on the? What are the options?
Not going to tell you, Reedy, because you'll probably write a story about it.
I would, yeah. Great column on.
Hey, Reedy, though, for the Dolphins, in
I've
all seriousness.
got a consolation prize.
For WTF, sorry.
What about this bloke getting caught up in the hip drop drama on the weekend and getting charged
it's
for a
cost
hip
me
drop?
$750.
Almost snapped the bloke's leg.
I didn't see the charge.
I don't even know what hip drop is, and I got done for one. So.
Are we okay with Payne Haas? And I know you've talked about it across the weekend, but are we okay with the Payne Haas one? Because interestingly
in terms
enough,
of the charge or the not being sin binned?
all of the above. Because Andrew Johns in commentary on Channel 9 says it happened like another one happened about 3 minutes beforehand. He said, anytime you leave your feet these days, you're in trouble, and that's what they're looking for. Now, Payne Haas, it didn't look like it at the time, but you look at it on review, both feet are off the ground, and he ends up...
We were commentating it, and after they sent those 2 blokes in the bin already, we were like, for sure that's 100% going to be 10 in the bin. And the worst thing was, because Kim Gillow was injured and stayed down, they got to look at the replay over and over and over, and nothing happened.
It's weird.
We couldn't believe it. We were like, that just throws the rule book out, doesn't it?
The referee clearly didn't want to make it 13 on 11.
Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Did you get penalised for yours, Woodsy?
Nah, so I think it was like 2 or 3 sets later when they scored a try, he just called me out. I was like, what's wrong? And he goes, you just want to report for a hip drop. And I was like, oh, am I 10 the bin, am I? He goes, no, just go back.
Oh, did he? Oh,
and I was like, because I thought automatically if you do a hip drop, you 10 the bin these days.
No, I think depends how bad it is. Or in Payne Haas's case.
It still cost me, Reedy.
It's weird because Graham Annesley was on the radio yesterday here on Triple M.
And there's an explanation on NRL.com as to what a hip drop is and why we're looking to eradicate it out the game.
Does it make sense?
Maybe you should share that with the commission because aren't they going to review all that stuff at some point next week?
This week.
Look, it's a difficult one. Are there injuries being caused by it? Yes, there are. What can we do about it as a game? I think it's just like the evolution of every tackle that comes into the game.
But some of them, don't you think, some of them just happen. They're just unlucky.
They're rugby league tackles.
Yeah.
So if you look at,
like even the Payne Haas one, I think is.
I don't think any of them,
because Gillard's legs sort of splayed and he's crawling on the ground.
I don't think any of them.
Have you seen Dale Finnecans?
That game on Friday. I don't think any of them should have been charged. I don't think any of them were.
Dale Finnecans got 3 weeks.
If you look at, I think if you go back last season, Patrick Carrigan did one on Jackson Hastings.
That was bad.
And that's the type of one that you go, hang on a minute, we're gonna suspend you. It's similar to what happened with the old. Remember when the chicken wings first came in and people were yanking on the arm, it was causing genuine distress, and then they looked to outlaw it. And then any time like a player had an arm, they'd like lie down, and you're going, that's not chicken wing.
It's like the crusher.
And then the same thing happened with the crusher, where it's like players were doing it to get force and actually cause an injury. And then all of a sudden, anytime anyone's in a position like that, they stay down. And it's the same now with the hip drop. Any contact with the lower limb, and people are staying down. And it's, I don't want to see players in situations where they're unfairly injured. I don't think anybody does. But you've also got to accept the fact that you can play the game in a legitimate manner and still have a risk of injury. And I think everybody understands that. What's really frustrating me is the fact that we're going back. We're going back. So my solution to this is let it be to the referee's discretion. If the referee sees a bad one, like the Carrigan one, we penalise it, we sin bin. If the referee doesn't, it's play on and it's dealt with the match review committee. Now, I know people are going to say, well, what about the howlers? You're going to miss them. It's like, what's the lesser of two evils?
Yeah.
This continuing on as it is, and then you get incidences like Payne Haas and he's not sent to the bin because they didn't want to make it 13 on 11, or that.
Yeah.
I prefer that over what we're witnessing at the moment because it's just complete and utter guesswork.
It is. But to the actual football, the Dolphins win.
Great comeback.
I think we've established now that they've got a bit of character, that football club.
Well, I think we knew that already, didn't we, Adam? The way they've played this year, they've never really beaten themselves this year. They've been in just about every game, and we talk about it every week. Wayne Bennett has done an amazing job with that football club. With where they started, we all thought, well, I didn't think they'd come last. A lot of people did think they'd come last, would run in the bottom. I thought they'd be bottom 4, but I even expected they'd drop off a bit now, but after being so good early on and with a couple of injuries they picked up, but they're not dropping off. They're going to be there.
But even you look at it on the weekend, 26-0 down.
Ridiculous.
Oh, mate, we were watching it in the sheds and we sort of turned it off at 26-6, just after half time when you got to turn off your phones and that. And when at the end of the game, I remember Jakey went to go do the talk with Fox League and he yelled out, he goes, mate, you wouldn't believe it. The Dolphins won. I said, you're kidding, mate. No way. It just shows you that they're a side built on effort and just working for each other. And, mate, Wayne has done an absolutely exceptional job up there because I actually gave him no hope in that second half. It's a bit of an
indictment on the team they played, though. You can't lose a game like that. 26-0
they're up for a lead the week prior against the Broncos as well.
We called that game for Triple M. We spoke to Tino after the game, and, geez, the poor bloke was shattered and spoke about attitude. It's not like they're not talking about this issue, but, you look back at Titans game against Broncos. Well, the Broncos got a lot of talent, and you can see how, the Broncos can put on quick tries, but really the Dolphins had no right to be in that game.
No.
And they were awful to start the game. Absolutely awful. The Dolphins were running through the middle third of the field with ease, and then that sort of role reversed, and I think it comes down to both teams' attitude. But when you're in a position like that, you've got to close it out, and there's three moments that the Titans we talked about situational awareness from teams where they're recognizing players being off the field, that the Titans just beat themselves or allowed the Dolphins the opportunity to come back in the game. They do a short dropout, which didn't go 10, which was ridiculous.
Like from Tanner Boyd, wasn't it?
Tanner Boyd did a short dropout. Then there was a AJ Brimson. The Dolphins moved the ball. It's bounced up. AJ Brimson's got the ball. He's breaking away. The Titans have been under all sorts of pressure. Brimson breaks away. He looks to his left. He's got a Dolphins player there, but he's got Carm Pereira over the top. He goes over the top to try and find Carm Pereira on play zero. Play
I
zero.
haven't seen the game.
Asako takes the ball.
Oh my God.
What are you doing? And then later on in the game, David Fafita over on that left edge, bears through, looks to offload, knocks the ball on. Those three moments, you just go, what are you guys doing? What are you thinking?
There's few of those occasions, and I know it's hard because the game's so quick, but it seems when a team either jumps out to a big league or not so much gets behind in the Dolphins' case, but there's no mentality of we're out to a big league. You know what we're going to do? We're going to make this exceptionally boring now. We're going to just cart the ball up the field, pressure. And if you're going to beat us, you'll have to do something unbelievably spectacular.
If the Titans did that, they win.
And they've got some guys who should know. Look, Kieran Foran's there. They're 5'8", and that's what they brought him for, Kieran, to bring him some leadership and some stability on the field and some, game awareness like that. You would have thought Kieran. I love the Foz man. He's up against Manly this week, right? Great game, Kieran up against Manly. But that's what you buy a bloke like that for. To calm the game down and get you over the line in games like that. When you're 26-0 up, he should take control, right?
It's part of the Titans' identity that they like to throw the ball around and play with a little bit of risk, and they're still in that mentality of we'll beat you 34-26, or we'll beat
Is that a coaching thing then, Jimmy? And again, Justin's coming off a pretty disappointing year. There was a lot of talk he could lose his job at the end of last year. And now they've started this season. What have they won? Three of 7? 3 of 8? 3 of 7, I think. So And losing games like that, that just heaps. I would imagine that he's sort of he's gone under the radar a bit, right? Because all the focus has been on
but he's jagged a couple
the
wins when
Tigers,
needed
and the
them.
focus has been on Anthony Griffin.
Dragons.
But I tell you what, if they have more performances like that,
Well,
there's going to be a lot of heat on Justin
That really
Holbrook.
does throw him in the spotlight. When you're up 26-0 already, you just can't blow a lead. And I think you said it best, Adam, is just kick to the corners and just play boring.
Play like Melbourne Storm used
There's
to.
no
when they
need
got
like
into
on play.
to a lead.
But that just shows you where they're at as a side. They want to score for every play. They don't want to build any pressure. Jimmy just said, AJ Brimson plays 0, tries to go over the top. You've got to play the percentage plays in those situations.
Looks great if it comes off.
Oh, yeah, it looks great. But you're already up. You're already up. You don't need to. Like, what's wrong with winning the game 26-0 and not scoring a point in the second half?
But also the concern is that they can, and with all due respect to the Dolphins, they've got a halfback in there who was sensational Qatar, but like the Dolphins don't have they're not superstar. They're not. It's not Brisbane.
Sean O'Sullivan's out too.
They're not Brisbane. With a Walsh and a Staggs and a Haas and a Cobbo.
Carrigan.
That can break, can do things out of nothing. They had to really work for that. They had to work really hard for that. They had a couple of tries through the middle to start the second half. Then they're not tries that they really had to work for. So what you do in that situation is you make just life difficult, shore up the middle, force the opposition to go out wide, force the opposition to go and chase points. And they never really had to do that. That's the disappointing thing, that the tries came too easy.
Bulldogs, guys, just one on the Dogs. It's three losses in a row now. Is it fair enough that the scrutiny isn't fully, the blowtorch isn't on them? Because firstly, they're a rebuilding club. This is a rebuilding year. We have that made widely apparent at the start of the year. And secondly, they've been crushed by injuries. But the last 3 games, they got blown away by Souths in the end. And then on the weekend, it was Cronulla who they were always in front. They were always chasing the game.
Yeah.
Where they're at the moment, the Dogs, is it fair enough that they're not copying Tiger, Dragon like
they got a new coach. The injuries are there. And you look at the sides. They're playing against Souths, Sharks, who are going into the season. They're top 4 prospects.
Para was the other one that...
And they're good sides. And Para they got out to a little bit of a lead and just held on in the end too. But you got a lot of young kids coming, stepping up. They're getting some valuable game time at the moment. But I know they are. They're laying low at the moment. But it's when their players do come back. You want to see that they're trying. The effort's there, but they just haven't got it at the moment. I think for me, I thought a real weird one on the weekend was, I don't know why they put 7 and 6, swapped them around.
It doesn't really matter.
They played the exact same game for me. I know they said they wanted to get
Burton ball.
Is that a psychological thing though, Woodsy? If you put a 7 on him, maybe he thinks...
Well, he can't see it.
Maybe he thinks he knows what he's wearing.
Yeah,
he knows he's wearing 7.
He played the exact same game.
I understand that. But obviously
different.
they were trying to get him to play a different game and maybe it didn't work.
We've got a kick me sign on the back of you haven't seen it yet.
So what does that do for Cole Flanagan's game? Like they just want him to be just a
I
catch pass
sort of. Don't you think it's pretty obvious that Cole Flanagan doesn't have a future there beyond this year? I think that's been obvious for a couple of years.
Then why are they playing him?
That's a very good question. Maybe they don't have any other options. Well, they've got a
young kid they paid big money for.
Well, I think I'd be surprised if he doesn't play this week. The young kid,
you reckon?
He's getting close.
And you got to manage, manage youngsters' entrance into first team. I think looking at the Dogs, the last 3 weeks results wise have been disappointing. I can see the change just observing the game. I'm not there at training. I observe what I'm witnessing on the field, and you can see change, see what they're trying to do. They're just down on cattle at the moment. It's as simple as that. And, for the disappointing losses, let's not forget, they've gone down to Melbourne and won in Melbourne.
Yeah.
That's a huge victory.
We can't rely on that all year, but Jimmy, that's the other thing. We can't rely on that all year.
No. You can't rely on that all year. But I think, with the position that they've been in for the last 3 or 4 seasons, they're a team that don't quite know how to win, and when you compound that with injuries, it makes it just that almost more difficult. I think the next 4 games that they have, they play the Dragons, Canberra, Warriors, and Titans. They're 4 big games, and that
So you reckon
I'm speaking from outside the club point of view here, because I know you take things a game at a time, but those 4 games are 4 games you can really go after, and if you put in the same level of effort against that caliber of opposition, you're more likely to get the points. It was a mountain against the Sharks.
Three-
a mountain to climb.
3 of 8 they've won.
But even like you look
Is
at
10 wins their par?
Another one you look at is Newcastle. They've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of their key players as well. And what they've gone out there and done, and mate, they've been incredible. Look, they took Penrith to a golden point game when they had, Ponga out.
Oddly enough, they won the
Saifidi
same amount of games as the Dogs.
It's crazy,
3.
Yeah, but the scrutiny under them going
3
into
of
the
8.
season, O'Brien
Yeah.
was another man that was head on the chopping block.
Under the
Well,
pumpage.
it's the nature of
And a
the
draw.
way they've played, though, Newcastle. I reckon Newcastle, you can see they're having a red hot go every
Yep.
week. And I think Canterbury probably, most games Canterbury look that way as well. So I think that helps in terms of taking the pressure off the coach because they look as though they're having a red hot go for the coach.
And even against the Sharks, it threatened to blow out a lot, but they hung in there.
It was just that little
And they
period
had a
after
little
half
bit
time.
of fight.
Just at half time.
And the opening 20 minutes that they'd love back.
Yeah.
They'd love back. Kennedy scores a hat trick. You'd love those moments back.
I thought they were hard done by on that obstruction try too.
With Flanagan.
Yeah, I thought that because you know what? Every time we watched it, they go Flanagan played the person. Well, he was on the outside shoulder. If that person wasn't there, he wouldn't have played him.
You should get on the get in the bunker, Woodsy. Next move.
you
Manly
are
to the
natural.
bunker.
But I've just seen it happen so many times.
Yeah,
and
I know.
that was a crucial period for the
Yeah,
Bulldogs.
absolutely it was.
Because it was just before half time and they went up by 10. And then they would have only been up by 4 and they would have had a kick down the other end of the field. It's just about moments in games.
Let's get down to the post office and pick up Ready's mail.
Ready's mail.
I'm just reading this story that Chammy's just posted about young Wakeham and Samuel Afanu. Apparently allegations that there was a spit.
Oh, wow.
Spat in the-
Spit?
Spit. The allegation that Samuel Afanu spat in the face of Brandon Wakeham.
Oh, dear.
I'll tell you what else makes this interesting, actually. I just read this other story, actually. On
Wow.
tell you that Sione Fanu plays for the
He
West
plays in
Tigers,
Tigers,
doesn't he?
yeah.
So, I mean...
There's 4 brothers.
Yeah, there's 4 brothers. Manasi's in jail, obviously. Samuela. Latu is
He's
at Manly as
with us,
well.
young kid.
He's
And
the gun.
Sione Fanu's
Yeah,
at the
young.
Sione Fanu's at the Tigers as well.
Okay.
He's a
So
front
you got
rower.
Brandon Wakeham having a blue with Samuel Fanu, allegedly over a spit. Meanwhile, he's playing in the same club as Sione Fanu. So it's an interesting one.
Interesting at training today or tomorrow.
Dave,
Did
Dave
you hear,
Ricciardo's
did you
calling
hear
by the
about
way.
those allegations?
I honestly didn't hear about
Really?
those. I was on.
Did you
when
see
did
it? Were you on the
happen?
field?
Yeah.
When did it happen?
I don't know.
Apparently there was a fight in the tunnel as well. With
Did you hear about that?
Man,
He swears on his kids that he didn't see
I
it.
missed out on a lot yesterday.
Now, Ready,
Anyway,
there's-
there's a bit going on there at the Tigers and Manly by the sounds of it. And it'd be interesting, the Tigers now with young...
Bring
what's
back the
his name?
Fibros and Silver.
Sione Fanu and Brandon Wakeham.
There's
That's
a lot
gonna
of
make
this.
life pretty
It seems a
unsettling.
lot of this kicking off this year. Royce Hunt and Corey Horsburgh.
It's good to see.
Like-
Tevita
maybe
Pengai,
not the
Royce Hunt.
spitting. Spitting's maybe a
Again,
little
it's an
bit
allegation.
far.
It's an allegation, so maybe we should...
You've got a truckload of mail. The only one we really want to know about
Vegas?
in this
It's Vegas, isn't it?
What's going on?
We
with
all want to know about Vegas.
Vegas.
We're all queuing up to get on that junket, aren't
You'll
we?
be on the junket, mate. You've already been at Masters.
Yeah.
Come on, mate.
I hope so. I'll be campaigning hard for it. Look, I mean, obviously, this has been in the wind for a while now. There was talk about the game being played, the season being kicked off next year in LA, and then there was talk about San Diego. But it looks like they've arrived on Vegas. There's a brand new stadium there in Las Vegas. Going to be a Super Bowl there in.
Yeah,
Might
next
even be
January.
next one, right?
It is January.
And the idea is that they obviously take 4 teams over there, play a double header in Vegas, play at the so they would play those 2 games, and I imagine they then play the other 6 games the week after.
Yep.
Gives those
To open the season.
4 teams another week to then recover for round 2. And Andrew and Peter are going over there after Magic Round next week. So. Look, I mean, they've been talking about going over there for a while, those 2, Andrew and Peter, the Peter Volandis and Andrew Abdo. They've been talking about going over there and doing some reconnaissance. I actually sent Andrew a text message this morning and said, look, if you need a journo to document your trip, I'm available because I think it'd make a great yarn.
Questions to ask. Are there enough hotels to host 4
in
teams?
Vegas.
Right, let's go and check that out.
Look, they want it to happen.
Can
And
we stay there a little bit longer than just the game?
and having spoken to
What could go wrong?
having spoken to Melbourne, Manly, South, and Brisbane today, who are 4 of the clubs who have been most associated with playing that game, they're all mad keen on the idea.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they think as long they're mad keen on the idea. A, as long as it doesn't affect the rest of their season, and B, as long as they can see there's evidence that the NRL's committed to it. Like it's not a one-off
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not a one-off thing. It's a 3 or 4 year plan.
Yeah, so there's a bit of strategic planning going in there. Is this the NRL's answer to to the rugby union argument of like, oh, well, would you rather play in Penrith or Paris? Well, it's like, hey, we got Vegas, baby.
You know what?
Vegas
I was thinking about that argument today.
On the Sevens circuit, I think there's a Sevens drop off on.
I was thinking about that argument today. That whole argument about, do you want to play in Penrith or Paris? If you're making enough money in rugby, you can take a holiday to Paris anytime you want, can't you? So what's the big deal?
And also, let me tell you, you go to these places, you don't see them. I've got mates in England, and they're like, "Oh, how's Australia?" Blah blah blah. Like, I didn't come here where's your tan? It's like you don't come to Sydney to play in the NRL. I'm not here for a holiday.
Yeah.
Some may argue that I did come with a bit of an attitude, like I was on holiday. But you're not here. You're here to work and be a professional.
The thing they've got to guard against though is making it what the AFL's foray into China looked like, which was
joke.
Abomination, because they thought, we can get into China, plenty of expats in Shanghai, we'll get people. They held it in this ground that looked like a suburban park.
Yeah.
There was lucky to be 4,000 people there. There was a better atmosphere in the empty toilet.
They claimed it was a sellout, didn't they?
It looked so bad on so many levels.
That's what it said on Chinese state TV.
Yeah.
So you got to believe it.
So they've got to find the right venue, and I'm not sure 65,000 seater venue is going to be the right one unless they market it properly, and then somehow the key is getting it on either Fox or ESPN over there, so they can market it through their TV stations.
Well, I think
their
that's
affiliates.
the idea, right? I think that's the
Fox
idea.
America they're trying to get on.
America, try and get it on over there. But I mean, obviously Vegas, the idea is that there was some talk of the Tim Zoo fight as well. They've got lots of Australians there, lots of tourists
boxing,
there.
UFC.
Yeah. So I mean, they're actually, they're thinking a bit outside the square to make sure they maximise the exposure and.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. As long as we're on the trip. If we're not on the trip, it's a rubbish idea and they shouldn't go.
They should take the Magic Round because then everyone will go.
Oh, that's
all the broadcasters
idea.
will go.
Well, really, they play the press. Take all you guys, guys with us.
Rugby League.
Like,
Rugby League, 16 rugby league teams in Vegas.
Make it. And if there's no one there, just make it like COVID, where they put those, the
cardboard
cutouts. No, it was packed.
Just on the rugby thing, I know there's been this talk about this rugby exemptions for signing players outside the NRL, rugby players. Look, I don't know what you blokes think about this idea, but it's not a new idea. Dave Gallup. I spoke to David Gallup today about it, actually. He had this. They brought in exemptions for rugby players, young rugby players, 13 years ago, and never got used because clubs decided they'd rather spend money in their own backyard.
Was that the chest?
No, the war chest never happened.
Oh, never happened. Sorry.
They talked about the war chest.
Yeah.
This was actually a rugby union specific exemption, and Peter O'Sullivan, the Dolphins recruitment guy now, he was at the Roosters way back when, even before these exemptions, and he was the first bloke to actually ever go to South Africa and try and get some players out of South Africa. He actually got 2 young kids out of South Africa, brought them to the NRL, brought them to the Roosters. One of them, FP Duplessis, I think it was, from memory, actually played some lower grades and then went back to rugby union. He had another kid who broke a leg and never really kicked on. And he said one of the great challenges is those kids have no idea about rugby league. They don't know how to play it. And he said, it's like teaching a kid from basketball to play rugby league. He said, it's such a difficult job. And I said, would you go again if they offered you exemptions? He said, honestly, I don't know because it's just too hard. So, I mean, this idea of rugby union exemptions, I think.
Well, it's so blurred as well.
I think it's doomed to fail.
So many kids in the school system, the good ones, they play both.
Yeah.
If their school allows it.
They'd be the ones to target that have, an association with league. It's a very difficult crossover. If you go back and look at in the mid-90s, back in England before rugby union turned professional, league did go and get some rugby union talent, and it did work to an extent. I think.
Well, I think the head of the South African rugby now is Andy Marinos. He played rugby league.
Yeah,
he was a Super League signing.
Yeah, so look,
he didn't go any good.
Whether or not teams, it's a huge play. Like it's a huge play. Whether or not it would work, I mean, that remains to be seen. But you could see it as a, Canberra. Not that long ago, as a recruitment strategy, went to England and got some of the real top quality talent out of England, and it paid dividends for them. So a team's recruitment strategy may just be, hey, well, let's take the Tigers for instance. They struggle to recruit, perhaps they may go and identify the best talent in Union and bring them to our sport that way. And that could be because really the top teams, it's going to be hard to envisage just because the amount of resources you would need to put into them.
But isn't there also an argument, Jimmy, that if we've got spare money, if there's money clubs can spend on players, rather than go and spending it on a rugby union kid you don't know that he's going to make it, if you've got some spare cash, use it to keep the guys in the game. Use it to keep.
But there's
Nelson and Payne Haas and those guys.
Yeah, but then that gets abused though, really, because all that happens is
they trump up.
They'll threaten to go the other club.
They just go like Brisbane go to NRL. Look, Payne's going to leave. We need you to tip in.
Yeah,
and then they tip in,
and
then it becomes really unfair. That's your problem when you've got the pot to retain players as opposed to recruit players. But there's one thing that I thought is fantastic. One of the greatest quotes I've heard from you, really. You're talking about those two South African players coming over. He said, one broke their leg and never really kicked on. Well, it's kind of hard when you broke your leg.
Apparently he was a gun too. Apparently he was a very good player. Sully had high hopes for him.
Some of your best work, Reedy.
I can't see how they implement any kind of strategy other than what exists. It's a bit like, say, if you got told that you can't buy real estate in another suburb, and then all of a sudden you're allowed to buy real estate in another suburb. What does that mean for the real estate agent? Fantastic. It means his market. This
whole argument it's like rugby league. This reinforces this whole theory that we write the same stories every 10 years.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we went through exact same thing 10 years ago.
20 years
He said
ago.
There was, say 15. Let's split the difference. He said it was John O'Neill instead of Hamish McLennan. Yeah. It was Dave instead of Peter V'landys.
Wasn't that big mate in the back here too? Wendell?
Oh, Wendell was involved back then. So, and what happened then? We all thought, we all thought the sky was falling in.
End of days, yeah.
And rugby union is no different to where it was back then. Exactly. And Hamish McLennan hasn't got an unlimited pot of money. At some point, it's going to dry up. I mean, the stupidity of it all was him talking about signing Nathan Cleary. He's got 5 years left on his contract. I mean, how stupid was that comment?
Could be difficult to break.
And yet we give him oxygen.
Well, you guys love it. Don't look at me.
You guys love it.
I'm giving him oxygen now.
Because you love it.
Yeah. We do love it.
Yeah.
It's you're just logging all these stories, and then in 15 years' time, you're just going to go, hey, remember back in 2023 when I told you about Nathan Cleary?
I just drag out the old stories and sub the names
Jimmy,
in,
I'll tell you, the best feeling in the world as a journalist, and I'm a kind of half one, he's a proper one, is that when you wake up in the morning, you know what you're writing about. That's the best feeling of it, because you don't need to chase anything. Yes. When you need to chase and you get to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you go, shit, I haven't got anything.
Yeah. Starts ringing everyone.
That's the problem. That's when stories get made up. Not that you do that, Reedy. Any other mail?
Like Chemis.
No, that's big week actually for the Storm. Anzac Day game. They got the bye after that, and I reckon we'll have a decision for Craig Bellamy this week.
Okay.
I don't know what my gut feel is. He will go around again, but I don't know because you never know with Craig.
He's been on the Bell Lap for 20 years.
He has been
Incredible.
He's got a documentary. We talked about it the other week. He's got a documentary crew. They'll be filthy if he goes around again.
Gents, thank you. Enjoy your week. Enjoy Anzac Day as well, and commemorations will be beautifully put on at Allianz Stadium tomorrow. The first one back there, fantastic. Amy Park, always a good scene as well. Enjoy your footy for the week, and we'll catch you next week for the Monday Scrum.